We will make use in this video of the sacred symbol for life in order to construct a cosmogony diagram, the soul's birth and passage from the realm of energy into the material realm. Step by step, along with clear examples, we will discuss how the soul is formed, how it develops, and the stages through which it passes before taking entry into the physical body. The mystery of the symbol of life. Prior to exploring the symbolic significance of this ancient sign, we must understand three concepts that play significant roles. What is a symbol? The definition of the word secret and what sacred geometry symbolizes. What is an icon? A symbol is an expression for complicated concepts in the form of something simple. Picture making your way in an unknown country with no language in common. You must locate the nearest hotel. How will he describe what he needs? He may use his hands, gestures, or sketch on paper. The simpler and the more general the image, the better the other person will be able to comprehend. Sacred symbols function in the same manner. They speak universally, allowing us to share profound knowledge in the absence of words. What does secret mean? The term secret may have at least two meanings. Secret information. Information that is withheld intentionally from outsiders. Open, yet not overt. Standing right in front of us, yet only revealing its underlying significance to somebody who is willing to grasp it. Consider the case of a well. At first glance, it is merely a source of water. Symbolically, it may signify the source of life, profound wisdom, or an experience into inner truth. The symbol of the well. A multi-layered mystery. A seemingly simple word, well, carries a wide spectrum of symbolic interpretations. These layers of meaning are often accessible only to those initiated into the knowledge of symbols. Thus, a well, an image easily understood by all, becomes a deeply encoded symbol with multiple levels of interpretation. This hidden knowledge remains veiled to the uninitiated. In illustrations 1, 2, and 3, we explore three different visual representations of the same object, the well, each with its own unique symbolic reading. Illustration 1, a literal depiction, the well as a physical structure. Illustration 2, a Latvian folk symbol used as a protective charm for the home and a symbol of health and abundance. Illustration 3, a topographic symbol found on maps to indicate the presence of water, essential for travelers. This progression shows how a single object can be seen through different lenses, practical, cultural, and symbolic. Understanding sacred geometry. To unveil the meaning behind the symbol of life, we turn to the principles of sacred geometry. Sacred geometry, in its broadest sense, is a mental and philosophical concept that lacks scientific validation, and rightly so. Scientific methods require two foundational pillars: empirical approach. Research must be observable, repeatable, and verifiable. Scientific data is rooted in direct experimentation and measurable outcomes. Logical reasoning conclusions must follow from structured logic, mathematical modeling, and analytical methodology. However, science is inherently limited to systems with a finite number of interpretations. In contrast, symbols, especially in sacred geometry, may contain infinite layers of meaning, leading to multidimensional and unpredictable conclusions. The essence of sacred geometry. Sacred geometry is not a scientific framework. It is a multi-layered system of meaning hidden within simple geometric forms, meaning that can be truly understood only by the initiated. In human life, certain events defy logical, scientific, or even theoretical explanation. Often, between two consecutive events, there is something unseen, a mysterious connection that cannot be measured, recorded, or logically justified. Real-life examples. Beyond science. Take, for instance, the story of Croatian man Frane Selak, a person who miraculously survived 7 deadly accidents, including train derailments, car crashes, and even a plane crash. While others perished, Selak escaped with minor injuries. Or the case of Vesna Vulovic, a Yugoslav flight attendant who survived a fall from over 10,000 meters after an explosion on board the aircraft, an event that has no rational explanation. There are countless such true stories, real people and real events, that exist outside the realm of logic and science, offering a glimpse into a deeper reality beyond ordinary perception. We live in a world whose complexity and multidimensional nature are infinite. That's why trying to describe it through a purely mechanical or scientific lens is simply impossible. Sacred geometry, through the hidden meanings of basic geometric shapes and the relationships between forms, allows us to speak of universal laws. Laws that govern cosmic order, the flow of energy, and the formation of energetic structures across material, astral, and spiritual planes. By combining sacred geometry with the symbolic language of ancient traditions, we can begin to explore the laws of the universe and see the deep connections between energy, harmony, and matter, helping us to understand the karmic patterns and cause and effect relationships that make up each human life. Let us now turn to a deeper symbolic concept, the process of creation itself. Having already considered the meaning of words like symbol, secret, and sacred geometry, we now move forward to explore a symbolic construction, step by step, which illustrates how something arises out of the unmanifested. This process of cosmogony, the symbolic story of creation, is present in many cultures and religions. In Christian tradition, this moment is described with the phrase, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Genesis 1:1. In Hindu cosmology, the formless and limitless Nirguna Brahman gives rise to the manifest Saguna Brahman, who possesses attributes and qualities. In Buddhist philosophy, there is no concept of a creator God. Instead, the world arises as part of an infinite cycle of rebirth and dissolution. Worlds come into being and vanish, just like the beings who move through many lives. But the transition from unmanifest to manifest still exists at the heart of that process. In Taoist cosmology, the great emptiness, Wu Ji, gives birth to the first defined state, Tai Ji, the supreme ultimate. Tai Ji contains within itself the two complementary forces of yin and yang. Here, it is crucial to understand. Yin and yang do not split from one another. They coexist as two aspects of one whole. When they begin to interact, this interaction gives rise to Tao, the path. Yin and yang are not enemies. They are different states of one unified force. Yin is passive and receptive, yang is active and expressive, and together they sustain balance. In Western philosophy, this initial moment is often linked to the emergence of the monad. Let's pause and take a closer look at this idea. We'll be referring to it frequently. A monad is the fundamental unit of reality, an indivisible substance with its own unique inner world. It emerges at the moment of the first impulse and is already individual. It has qualities, it has boundaries, it carries a charge, and it generates its own energy field. It defines its own space through the very nature of its being. In many esoteric systems, this monad is directly connected with what we might call the soul. Each monad interacts with other monads through its boundary. Inside, each monad reflects the entire universe, but that reflection is always colored by the monad's unique quality. It's like looking at the world through a piece of colored, slightly textured glass. You can still see everything, but the colors shift, and the shapes are subtly distorted. And the deeper a monad descends into matter through the course of its evolution, the more layers of color and texture cover this inner lens, gradually distorting the perception of original reality. Monads are individual and unique. Each one is, in potential, a universe in itself. they interact with one another. And these interactions create the laws of energy flow. From this emerges what we call collective consciousness, known across traditions as God, the Absolute, or universal mind. This universal mind is an energy field. On one hand, it follows the laws of energetic interaction. On the other, it is composed of individual charges, each with its own perception and reaction to reality, based on the qualities it received at the moment of its emergence. In ancient Greek philosophy, the concept of monad was echoed in the idea of the atom. In Indian philosophy, it's Atman. As we've already mentioned, the concepts of monad and soul are, in essence, the same. But this leads to a deeper question. Why? What caused the emergence of a young soul in the first place? In Buddhist mythology, the cycle of existence is described as eternal and repetitive. But even that doesn't fully explain the origin. There must be a starting point, a moment when individuality first appeared in the fabric of the universe. Let's try to explain this through an analogy. Imagine a clay vessel, freshly shaped by a potter and placed in a kiln. After firing, it begins to cool, entering a state of absolute stillness. But within its structure, zones of internal stress begin to form. These stresses gradually intensify. Eventually, one of them dominates. If the pressure becomes too great, a crack appears, and the vessel breaks apart. In this way, tension is released through the breakdown of matter. Tension exists in every type of medium: gas, liquid, solid, plasma, even in flexible or plastic forms. Only the way this tension is expressed changes from one form to another. And since everything in the universe is based on correspondence, since reality is a fractal, the laws of energetic interaction are consistent in any environment. Only their manifestation differs. According to the principle of analogy, by applying this same logic, we can understand how the state of absolute stillness might, through internal tension, give birth to individuality, to the soul. Let us make a brief clarification. The word absolute refers to something finite and defined. But since we are speaking of infinity, absolute stillness is only a poetic image. Even in such a state, internal tension arises, yet it does not express itself through destruction, because it is impossible to destroy that which forms the very essence of all things. Instead, it manifests differently, as a charge with its own energy field, as an abstract unit that possesses individual qualities. Within this conditional stillness, a point of tension emerges and immediately separates from the whole. A useful analogy is the soap bubble. When children blow bubbles, tension forms on the surface of the soap film due to differences in pressure. That tension resolves itself through the budding of a bubble. The bubble detaches and floats away, while the film returns to a state of rest. Each bubble is like an individual monad, a soul that arises from a break in the stillness. This is how the monad, atom, Atman, light, soul, and consciousness are born. Different names for the same phenomenon: the moment of emergence from the unmanifest. It is a point of singularity that flashes into existence and gives rise to matter. And because we are dealing with infinity, such points of tension, such monads, arise constantly, in every moment, without end. We can visualize this as foam on the surface of the ocean. A vivid metaphor: on the surface of the boundless ocean of the universe, life flares into being as tiny bubbles of sea foam that appear and vanish in an instant. They exist for just a brief moment, just as time itself fades when measured against eternity. And beneath that foam lies profound stillness and serenity. From this point on, we begin to draw the schematic diagram. In sacred geometry, the first impulse is represented by a point. This is the first step of creation in any cosmogonic system. We place a single dot on a blank sheet of paper. As soon as the impulse appears, it generates an energetic charge, a measure of energy released by the infinite. This gives rise to a charged abstract unit, around which an energy field begins to form. We call it abstract because this is not yet matter. There are no particles here, only fields, only energy structures that have not yet taken shape. This charge and the field surrounding it form a new monad, the soul, and mark the beginning of self-awareness as an individual. Thus, the soul is, on one hand, deeply connected to the whole, and on the other, already possesses unique qualities shaped by the very tension that gave rise to it. So, we begin with an impulse. That impulse generates an abstract unit with a charge and an energy field. In the next step, we draw a circle around the point. This becomes the foundation of the structure. Then within this energy field, two opposite states or qualities emerge. We draw a straight line through the center of the circle and mark two opposing points on its perimeter. These represent the boundaries of potential change within the field, a symbol of polarity. Later, we'll explore in more detail the types of fields present in the material world. But for now, let's illustrate two fundamental qualities of energetic fields using simple examples. Electric field. Two states, positive plus and negative minus charges. Magnetic field. Two poles, north and south. Gravitational field. Two states, gravity, attraction, and anti-gravity, levitation. Electromagnetic field unites electric and magnetic fields into a wave moving at the speed of light. Nuclear field active around atomic nuclei, shaped by attraction and repulsion between subatomic particles. Some real-life parallels include day and night as phases of a single cycle, hot and cold states of matter, centrifugal and centripetal motion in liquids, inner and outer perspectives, and more. The key is to understand that opposites are not a conflict of good and evil. They are simply two boundary states of one unified whole, different in quality, but equal in purpose. In sacred geometry, proportions are fundamental. Everything that follows occurs within the diameter, symbolizing the monad's energetic field. Beyond this boundary lie the fields of other energetic structures. Within this space, two opposite poles arise, each with its own energy field. Their proportions relate to the whole through the golden ratio, 0.618 of the full size. We then draw two circles, each with a diameter equal to 0.618 of the whole, and position them along a straight line, touching the outer boundary. At this stage of the monad's descent into matter, we now have two poles with opposing qualities of the same whole, and a zone where their fields intersect. This overlapping area is known as the Vesica piscis, Latin for vessel of the fish, or fish bladder. This form is one of the core symbols of sacred geometry, representing birth, balance, and creation. Such dual interpretations often distract from the true meaning of the symbol. That's why, at this stage of the cosmogonic process, we'll pause to clarify. The name Vesica piscis, meaning vessel of the fish, or more precisely, fish-shaped vessel, more accurately conveys the essence of this symbol. Let's now examine the form itself. In esoteric and occult sciences, this is one of the most important sacred symbols. It is formed by the intersection of two circles of equal diameter. The area where they overlap is what forms the Vesica piscis, the vessel in the shape of a fish. In traditional depictions, this figure is created when the center of one circle lies directly on the circumference of the other. In this figure, the ratio of height to width equals the square root of 3, approximately 1.7320508. This proportion produces three perfectly balanced segments of equal lengths. If we viewed this figure purely as a symbol, a template for constructing other esoteric patterns like the flower of life or the tree of Sephiroth, then our discussion of the Vesica piscis could end here. However, to build a practical model of the monad's descent into matter, we need a dynamic system. And that system is built upon the golden ratio, the relationship of the greater to the lesser, as the whole is to its part. In this system, energy flows from excess to deficiency, from hot to cold, negative to positive, from pressure to vacuum. Therefore, our model of the Vesica piscis will differ from the classical one. As mentioned earlier, we use two circles in a 0.618 ratio of the whole, where the larger diameter is marked X and the smaller epsilon. In the diagram describing cosmogony, there will be 4 such proportions. This number also holds significance. In numerology, the transition from 1 to 10, from the beginning of creation to the completion of its cycle, occurs over 4 steps. These steps form a pyramidal sequence. It is constructed through accumulating rows. Start with 1, add 2, you get 3, add 3, you get 6, add 4, and you get 10. Thus, in 4 steps, one reaches a new level. We will return later to the topic of numerology, particularly astrological numerology, and its influence on life and its practical applications. But for now, let's continue exploring the symbol of the Vesica piscis. As noted earlier, this symbol is commonly translated as fish bladder. But this interpretation is not entirely accurate. It's a deliberate construct in the informational field. A more accurate name would be vessel of the fish, or fish-shaped vessel, which far more precisely reflects the sacred meaning and essence of this form. Let's take a closer look at this symbol. In the cosmogonic diagram, this symbol appears as a form where 2 smaller diameters are inscribed within a larger one. The space between them forms what we call the fish-shaped vessel. Now, let us take a closer look at the ancient symbol of the fish. In the myths and beliefs of many cultures, this symbol carries several core meanings. Because the fish is directly linked to water, and water symbolizes life and its origin, the fish becomes a symbol of fertility, agriculture, and the birth of living beings. A single fish can lay anywhere from hundreds to millions of eggs. This highlights the idea that in the ocean of life, symbolically represented by water, the first source of living form appears. The fish, which fills that ocean with life, with form, with likeness. The second important aspect of the fish is mystery. It is a being that lives in the unseen world, hidden beneath the surface of the ocean. The fish becomes a guide between the visible and the hidden, the outer and the inner. And finally, its deepest meaning is that of the human soul. In many ancient cultures, it was believed that after death, the soul would take on the form of a fish and cross the river that separates the world of the living from the world of the dead. By uniting these 3 images, birth, mystery, and soul, we uncover the hidden meaning of the fish symbol. In our cosmogonic theory, this image represents the monad. The gesture of placing 2 hands together in prayer or greeting, used across many cultures, is a direct reflection of this same image. The fish, the soul, the monad. It speaks of a spiritual connection, one soul reaching out to another. From the heart, or from the soul. We can also express this on our diagram as 2 fish swimming toward one another. They symbolize the 2 opposing forces of a single whole. One moves upward, the other downward. They are shown in red and blue, representing 2 complementary qualities. The next step in the evolution of the monadic impulse is the symbol known as the eye. In earlier stages of creation, the 2 poles had already formed. The field generated by their interaction gives rise to consciousness. This is a pivotal moment in the process of cosmogony. To repeat, consciousness, or logos, arises in the space between 2 opposite poles. Its purpose is to balance those polarities. In our diagram, this space is represented by the Vesica piscis, the fish-shaped vessel. At the center of this area, a new field emerges, one that relates to the previous structures through the principle of the golden ratio. Its diameter is marked as Y3, and thus we arrive at yet another foundational symbol in sacred geometry, the eye. Now we arrive at the next key element. In our diagram, we begin with the primordial point, the very first impulse. It is the origin of everything. The iris of the eye symbolizes the space where consciousness arises, along with the 5 primary elements, which we will explore in more detail later. The shape of the eye corresponds to the sacred form known as Vesica piscis, the fish-shaped vessel. This moment can be described using biblical phrases like, "I am that I am," and "In the beginning was the Word." In Vedanta, one of the principal streams of Hindu philosophy, this state is called antahkarana, the inner instrument, the totality of consciousness positioned between the Atman, the self, and the body, the external instrument. In Western philosophy, this is the moment when logos is born, and this is the term we'll continue using. In ancient Greek, logos means thought, word, understanding, law, meaning, and cause. It is directly associated with the process of making sense of the world and human existence. To summarize, at this stage of cosmogony, we receive the sacred symbol of the eye and the concept of logos. The eye, as a sensory organ, is associated with light, with the ability to see and explore the world. Logos is the conscious interpretation, the assessment, the naming of that world. This state can be experienced in the moment of awakening from deep, dreamless sleep. If we are attentive, we may notice. At first, there are no thoughts, no memories, only the simple realization: I exist. A similar state arises when emerging from deep meditation. You become aware of yourself and of the outer world, but they are still separated by a transparent membrane. In time, this membrane dissolves, and you begin again to relate to your surroundings consciously. It is precisely in this transitional moment that 5 modes of awareness are born. 5 aspects of consciousness: mind, intellect, consciousness, self-awareness, and knowledge. We can compare this to light dispersion. Light strikes a prism, bends, and breaks into a spectrum of 7 colors. In the same way, the pure state of I am refracts into 5 forms of perception and 2 additional states. One is complete emptiness, no thoughts, total darkness. The other, no thoughts, but a sense of enlightened presence. In our diagram, this is shown as a signal passing through 2 prisms. The impulse flows from infinity, passes through the prism, breaks into components, manifestation, then recombines into a single beam and returns to infinity. The 5 aspects, mind, intellect, consciousness, self-awareness, and knowledge, will be explored in detail. They form the foundation of cosmogony and the structure of the material world. This is deep, dense knowledge, but most importantly, it has direct practical application in everyday life. We will return to it again and again. It's important to remember this. Consciousness, or logos, consists of 5 modes of perception, ways of relating the I to the external world. Let's continue. When the monad gives rise to logos, the first thing it begins to do is evaluate its position in space. It identifies up and down, left and right, front and back. In total, 4 directions. Why 4? Because left, right, and front, back are polarities along the same axis in a spherical system. In our diagram, these spatial directions are also proportionally aligned with the circle of consciousness, or the iris of the eye, according to the golden ratio. Now we arrive at the final ratio, a proportion of 4:1, where the x4 diameter fits into the golden ratio in relation to the whole. This marks the fourth step of creation. All geometric constructions must correspond in scale to the boundaries of the monad, the four diameters representing four aspects of consciousness. Fit precisely within the fish-shaped vessel, or the monadic field. The fifth and central aspect is the main diameter, which corresponds to Logos itself, represented as the iris. Let us recall, the essence of sacred geometry is found in proportional relationships. Thus, all five aspects of consciousness fit harmoniously within the fish-shaped vessel. Once Logos completes its assessment of the external world, it gives rise to five instruments for interacting with it. This results in the creation of the five primordial elements, or five fundamental forces, the primary energetic fields. These energetic fields are interconnected and together form the law of balance, or universal harmony. This law governs birth and dissolution, growth and decay, evolution and regression of everything that exists, from unseen energetic structures to entire universes. In esoteric symbolism, these five elements are known as water, wind, fire, earth, and metal. The next stage of creation can be illustrated with the example of a bean seed. We observe a bean seed as it undergoes 6 stages of development, from a simple seed to a living plant. We focus on stages 2 through 4, in which the seed determines where is down and where is up, where the roots will grow and where the stem will rise, how the seed knows what is up and down. We won't dive into that for now, though it holds many fascinating symbolic meanings. Returning to our model. Once the monad creates Logos and determines its position in space, it begins to concentrate its energetic fields. To continue the monad's movement into the material world, we arrive at the next stage. As the process of creation unfolds and the energy structures take shape, a sacred symbol frequently found in mythology, esotericism, and alchemy emerges: the egg. The egg represents the birth of the universe. Across many cultures, we find the concept of the cosmic or world egg, from which the cosmos is born. It is associated with myths of creation, the origin of life, fertility, and renewal. In alchemy, the egg marks the beginning of a new cycle, like the birth of new life. It is tied to transformation, rebirth, and the spiritual condensation of matter. In alchemical practice, vessels used to extract the essence of life were often made of clay and shaped like an egg. The metal copper, also considered sacred by alchemists, was one of the materials used in these processes, but we'll return to that in more detail later. Thus, the egg symbolizes a broad range of meanings: beginning, birth, fertility, potential, mystery, and spiritual transformation. At this point, the primordial impulse takes on a structured energy field in the shape of an egg. This energetic structure contains the foundation of life: a triad, monad, soul, logos, and now a new principle: spirit. We now introduce a fundamental concept: spirit. Previously, we saw the emergence of the soul, a personalized impulse of infinity expressed through charge and energy field. Logos is the system by which the soul evaluates and interprets the world based on its unique qualities and 5 levels of awareness. Spirit is the soul's energetic potential, known as life force or inner strength. Sometimes in life, it feels like all your strength has left you. You can't move. You can't even open your eyes. But then something stirs deep within, and you rise to keep going. That is the power of spirit. Spirit creates a protective energy shell around a person, an egg-shaped aura. In this way, the symbol of life is directly connected to the symbol of the egg. In our diagram, the triad, soul, logos, and spirit is represented as 3 overlapping circles, inscribed within the larger egg form, sharing a common center. The next step in the creation process is the emergence of the field of law. As we said earlier, Logos consists of 5 forms of consciousness, which give rise to the 5 primordial elements. Through these, consciousness either acts upon the external world or receives knowledge from it. These 5 elements are energetic structures whose interrelations establish the law of balance or universal harmony. This field of law functions like a lens through which the life force, spirit, passes into the material world. At the heart of the egg are soul, logos, and spirit. The 5 primordial elements form a structure that enables harmony and balance. This can be visualized as a beam of light passing through a lens. First comes the pure stream of light. Then it encounters the lens, the law of harmony. And finally it refracts, transforming into a form appropriate for the material world. Another good analogy is a film projector. It doesn't create the movie. It projects it through a lens onto a screen. In the same way, the field of the 5 elements, or the field of law, creates the refractive layer between the triad, soul, logos, and spirit, and the material world. This field is also known as the informational field, the Akashic records, or the noosphere, as described by Vernadsky. It holds all causal relationships generated in the material realm. This is the field of karma. The fewer karmic knots a person creates in life, the clearer the lens of law becomes between their soul, consciousness, and spirit. Here, a direct analogy arises with the lens of the eye. If the lens is healthy and clear, a person sees the world without distortion. But if it is clouded or deformed, then perception of the world will also be altered. Let us return to our cosmogonic diagram. We are now approaching the final 4th golden ratio, x4 and the corresponding elements. This diameter relates to one of the aspects of Logos consciousness and one of the primordial elements as a tool of Logos. One more golden ratio remains, y4, which lies outside the field of polarity interaction, beyond Vesica Piscis. This tells us that these elements belong to the next zone of creation, the egg, which consists of monad, logos, and spirit, along with the field of law, or informational field. This zone contains energy structures only. There is no matter, only energy and information. In contrast, elements related to the y4 diameters belong to the material world. Looking at the number of diameters that can be inscribed into the Vesica Piscis or monad field, we find that 7 diameters fit. At this stage, 7 energy vortices emerge, centers around which matter begins to condense. This is the emergence of the material world. Everything that takes the form of particles belongs to it. An example of matter forming around energetic fields is the transformation of milk into butter by churning, or blending it with a mixer. In ancient Indian mythology, there is the epic of churning the ocean of milk. It is one of the most important mythological plots in Hindu tradition. Gods and demons, using the serpent Vasuki as a rope, rotate Mount Mandara, and from this churning process arise various material things, including Amrita, the nectar of immortality, and Hala Hala, a deadly poison so powerful it could destroy all creation. In the same way that butter emerges from milk, the material world emerges from the unmanifest, bringing forth form and physical density. There are 7 energy vortices. 5 correspond to the 5 elements or forces, and 2 are directional: upward, violet, and downward, red. Depending on which vortex dominates, the remaining 5 will either raise their frequencies or lower them. In this way, the soul and monad either descend deeper into the material world or begin to liberate themselves from it. Energy enters matter and is distributed vertically by frequency, from ultraviolet radiation down to infrared. We can visualize this as the diminishing of frequency as spirit, like light, penetrates deeper into matter. A vivid analogy is light absorbed by deep water. The deeper you go, the less light remains. And the deeper one goes into matter, the less energy is available, which leads to increased competition for energetic resources. On low vibrational levels, free-flowing energy is not available, and energy must be taken from other living beings. From all this, we arrive at yet another sacred symbol, the Ankh. Its stylized form is found throughout ancient Egyptian mythology. It is known as the key of life. Ankhs were placed in the tombs of pharaohs so their souls could continue life after death in Duat, the Egyptian spiritual realm. The Ankh points to the divine and to eternal life. In ancient Egyptian images, gods are shown offering the Ankh to the nose of a pharaoh so that he may breathe in life. As a symbol of unending life force, the Ankh was carved on temple walls, monuments, and sacred objects. It is often seen on friezes and ceremonial tools. Let us now consider another highly recognizable sacred symbol, the Christian cross. In the image, we see the Ankh on the left and on the right in the same proportions. The cross, as it's known in Christianity. The sacred symbol of the Ankh represents eternal life, and after all we've discussed, we can understand why. The egg above the horizontal bar symbolizes life force, the spirit, and the reservoir from which life flows and is sustained. It is full, and it is shaped like an egg. If a person's life is balanced, energy flows from the egg into the material world and back. This means one stays connected to their soul, and through the soul, so to God. Then the egg of life, or the soul, never depletes energetically. Instead, it evolves and can eventually become a new universe. Each person's soul not only can, but ideally should, accumulate enough energy to give birth to a universe of its own. As we know, the flow of energy between the unmanifest and manifest worlds occurs through the law of balance. This is the horizontal line. But if a person lives disconnected from their soul and does not feed it with the energy of action and creativity, then energy slowly drains from the egg into the material world. Eventually, the egg, once a structure full of life force, becomes a vertical line, a symbol of emptiness or death. The meaning of the Christian cross is tied to the cult of the cross in Christianity, where Jesus Christ was crucified in martyrdom. Crucifixion was a common form of execution in ancient Rome. The word cross comes from Latin crux, meaning a tree or gallows, and the verb form implies torment or torture. These associations, I believe, speak clearly on their own. Now, returning to our cosmogonic diagram, we observe that 5 energy centers arise outside the zone of the primary impulse, and 2 within it. The outer world begins beyond the zone of the primary impulse. Through these 5 centers, incarnated monads interact with each other. Material forms linked to these energy fields disintegrate between incarnations. The 2 upper fields remain within the impulse zone. They also form material shells, but these do not decay. They persist until all life energy is depleted into the material world, or until the monad, through spiritual work, gathers enough energy to create its own universe. Let us now summarize the diagram. We see 3 levels from top to bottom. The unmanifest infinity, no matter here, only energy. This is where the primary impulse originates. The world of first causes, containing the 5 primordial elements which interact based on the law of balance. This is the informational realm, also known as the Akashic records, or the noosphere, per Vernadsky. The manifest world, the world of matter and physical interaction. Any particle born here is part of this realm. Even the material world contains its own version of infinity, a bottomless potential for absorbing energy. Above, energy can grow infinitely. Below, in the material world, energy is consumed endlessly. In the sacred symbol of life, the unmanifest and manifest worlds are represented as two semicircles. In astrology, we encounter the concept of lunar nodes, the dragon's head and tail. These 2 points symbolize which karmic lessons have already been mastered and which ones must be addressed in this lifetime. A fitting metaphor is the hourglass. The upper chamber holds past experience, the lower chamber fills with current experience, and the narrow center, that thin passage, is life itself, the present moment. In the symbol of life, this central moment is where we find the Ankh. Thus, the narrow space through which sand falls in the hourglass is the exact moment we are living in, here and now. See you again on Quantum Mech, wishing you light and blessing on your path.